And just like that, it is Wednesday. Welcome, all 700,000 of you. I am your lovely, gorgeous, sexy host, Chet Maddox, along with the thunderous lightning strikes, flooding the internet with his pure sex appeal, Mr. Alexander Storm. How are you doing on this fine Wednesday?
Hey, good toy evening to you, brother. Good toy evening to you.
Good toy evening to you as well, sir. Hey, look, we have a pretty interesting show. Maybe not talking about as many different things as we normally do, but you don't come to America's premier toy podcast to not get information, and that's what we're going to bring tonight. Darth Moocher, hello, welcome into the chat. So hang back, sit tight, get ready to get involved in the conversation because tonight is going to be a conversation known to to just spark other conversations that keep things up. But hey, thank you. Stay tuned, like, subscribe, follow, and all that crazy stuff. And we have some and just like that, it's burning. Mr. Storm, anything exciting happened with you this week?
I got a couple things we can't talk about it due to NDRs, but yeah,
What's an NDR? Is that like an NDA?
or I'm sorry, NDAs.
No, I'm just kidding. Non-disclosure. Yeah.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
hey man, it's just one of those things, man. Love to get into and just talk about toys and have a moment to just take away from all the hecticness back scene, man.
Yeah, man. I like it's funny enough. I think I know what you're talking about, and I
Yes.
also can't talk about it. Wholesome Warlock is blowing us up. Look, I'm excited to talk about this. I think that if you don't know and you haven't paid attention to the topic, is toy collecting over as we know it? We are going to get into that. There's also some unfortunate news that happened, but to round it out, we do have a lot going on and a lot coming up over the next few months, and especially some things we're excited for. So good evening, Dr. Brentley. Welcome to the thunderous, sexiest podcast online. I need to get me some of the SKM production. Well,
You can anytime you
all
want
you
it.
gotta do is ask. I don't
Yeah,
understand why.
and
Whatever.
again,
Anyways,
like the Wholesome Warlock, Purple Gang for life. They will
oh
be
yeah,
at IshCon, and along with our buddy Marcellus over at Uru Toys. So we got another
yeah.
announcement about that. But hey, you can't start the show without acknowledging the best gang in the entire world, brother.
Van
So,
Johnson hitting us up. No, collecting his life, collecting his love. We agree with you, and we'll get into exactly what we're talking about. Patty Atkins, welcome in. You bring
one of
it
my
first.
favorites.
We always bring it. Hey, let's just hit the head on the nail and smack the shed out of the eggs. You know what I'm saying?
Let's go.
Let's do this. So here's the posed question, and this is one of the casts that we will spend a lot more time in the comments. We know that there is a delay. We'll do our best to keep up to date with it. Is collecting done? That's what we want to know. Is it over as we know it? Now let's set the scene. Okay.
Yeah.
We're talking specifically how it's being collected now, right? We understand that the idea of collecting or just in general like that could never die. I think people just move on to something else, something better, whatever.
Yeah.
But what do you think?
Okay. And I guess tonight we're going to go more action figure frequencies than Toy Box
Yeah,
Chronicles.
this is
More
definitely going to be a
discussionary.
version of a version of action figure frequency for sure.
Purple Ray, what's going on? I think it's not over, but I think there's more of a recalibration of how you are going to collect. I think that you're not going to probably do the same things anymore because at the $30 a figure thing, and again, while the tariff prices, and if we haven't mentioned this right now, for the next 90 days is locked in at a still kind of reasonable yet unreasonable level, and I'm sure that's going to balance itself out. But I think that it's gonna $30 a figure is not gonna go away. It's not. I don't care what they say, what they do. It's not gonna go away. No company is gonna really go back down and say, "Hey, we're gonna go back to 24.99." I don't think that's happening. Now I could see it maybe fluctuate 27, maybe somewhere around
Mhm.
there. Maybe it won't be as high as 30, but eventually that's where the industry was gonna go.
Yeah.
And like I said again, well, wholesome warlock. I wish the figures I bought were $30.
Yeah, well, that's part of the topic we'll get into as well,
Yeah,
the mentality of collectors. So,
which is different. Yeah. But I think and that makes a very good point that that wholesome warlock actually stated. I think if you're a high end collector, and I'm talking about anything over $50, I don't think you're worried about it. I think you're expecting to pay those prices. It's one of those situations that's going to go. If
yeah.
you're somebody that's collecting Marvel Legends or like, let's say a G.I. Joe Classified or like maybe Star Wars Black Series, that's where the issue is going to start coming
Yeah,
because
so I
those
think
people tend to argue a little bit more about pricing other than the higher enders.
yeah, look, I think this is is very true in the sense of like there is yeah, build less armies exactly,
Right.
or find a way to build them cheaper.
Yeah.
Um here's my thing, and I think Wholesome Warlock really nailed this is you have um you have collectors. There's nothing wrong with it. That you do have your collectors, and by that I mean you have the collectors that live in like the Marvel Legends,
Yes.
like Black Series,
Hmm.
GI Joe Classified. You have those collectors.
Yeah.
Then you have like higher end collectors
Hmm.
in the same realm of the 1/12 scale. So Mezco released theirs, people buy that.
Yeah.
We a lot of people that do like the more very indie scene, which I think is where that collection level lies
Yeah.
different.
Hmm.
So like to kind of go off, I got the Ganesh figure from Mythic Legions, and that was basically like $90 like shipped, right?
Yeah.
I
Hmm.
don't have a problem with it, but also every time Mythic Legions drop something, whether or not it's in your style or it's what you collect, that it's going to be good, right? So you
Yes.
understand what you're paying for. So I think yeah, the Ganesha is a gorgeous figure. I'm actually working on on how to do an unbox for this because typically I do them super quick, and I'm like, I don't know if I could do this. But then you keep going and you have people that collect even higher things like Hot Toys, and then now people are starting to do even bigger scale. So I think what this is really doing is it's really focusing in on where people spend their money, and it's really going to narrow down their collection. And we've talked about this on Action Figure Frequencies and
Yeah.
here even.
Hmm.
This has really like sparked my interest into getting back into like doing vintage because
Yeah.
at least
Hmm.
for vintage for me, and I'm really passionate about vintage collecting. I know I'm spending a lot, but it's something that like I know there's not a lot of them, so I bottle
Yeah.
them.
Yeah,
You know what I
well,
mean?
and I think that that's the plus and the minus out of this is that look, again, like we've talked about, whenever you do a mask line and it has a new rendition, more people
Mhm.
go towards that. That makes the older toys drop down in price a little bit more accessible. I think you're going to have a lot more vintage seekers out there because one, you know, um, I don't think their market is going to like go crazy where they're going to be like jack up the prices because they've seen what's happening with these bigger toy companies that are jacking up the prices. But I
Sure.
think that you'll have more people going out to the flea markets, to the swap meets, to the checking Facebook Marketplace, and going to classic toy shows like we went to SoCal Joe show, which had a very good amount of people that were there. it's that's where it's going to kind of change. And like Dark Moocher said, yeah, I think the vintage market will gain traction. I think he's absolutely right on that. And
Yeah, well,
welcome in, Rad. Chet's going to buy up to the mass market. Yeah, he's
that
gonna
is also
try.
correct. It's gonna be, yeah. I guess I don't really have competition with Scott because he already owns everything. So
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And of course, and welcome in, C's the director. Welcome in, sir. But yeah, I think you'll see more G1s being
yeah,
purchased. I think you'll see more real American heroes. I think that like we were talking about, like, Spiral Zone and some of those other Dino Riders and everything. I think people will start having a passion to go through that because look, you already know there's a certain price on this. So you're
yeah,
not going into it thinking like, like, well, why am I going to spend $30 for several figures when I'm just going to definitely go ahead and I'm just going to maybe spend $100 on like, this classic Joe vehicle, this classic mass vehicle. And if you're going to spend it, but now, and I don't want to, I guess, um, slander any of the because there's certain collectors. The guys who do the regular base model, and yeah, Dennis, welcome in, sir. Just spent $280 in two Mezco's Wolford frogs worth every penny.
yeah.
Yeah, and this is the exact argument on this, is that there's certain people that, like, some of the smaller end, they've always complained about the prices going up. And yeah, these people are working hard class individuals and everything. And then there's the collectors that don't mind spending on high end items, and they are into the, Four Horsemen and all those great ones. And that's they're already used to having that price increase. They're already used to a lot of the anime figure collectors. They're used to paying a lot amount of prices. Yeah, just got yesterday the $60 Venom from Marvel Legends is huge and worth its size, a commander size Transformers. Oh, okay.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
I also so if no one knows, it's the Gamerverse version of Venom.
Yeah.
I also got that in like 2 days ago. I think it showed up, and it is I'm pretty impressed with it.
Yeah.
It's a bulky figure. It's like 10 inches, so I might actually be bigger, but I think yeah, it's pretty good.
And that was the best part, because imagine like what the price of that probably would be. Let's say $80 now,
Yeah, I
for
mean,
that figure.
yeah, it's yeah,
You know? So,
it's
again,
crazy.
and, at $60, like last year we ended up buying like the Hulk Buster. I think you got Olden, there's a couple of the bigger figures. They were kind of getting. I think what's going to suffer is like the Maximum Spider-Mans, because at this point, like, people were already kind of talking up there in the price. And, and the said Maximum Hulk, I think that's where Hasbro has made a miscalculation on, because at this
Yeah.
point, people are like, "Well, why am I going to spend that when your basic figures?" Like, I think they might be pricing themselves out on the market because it's so strange now.
Yeah, I think that era is kind of gone. Like, you're not the first person I've known that canceled their Maximum Spider-Man.
Yeah,
So,
yeah, yeah,
um, I think like, yeah, to kind of go back to like the collector mentality, right? Like
mhm,
if you're passionate about it and you enjoy the collection, like Rad, he has a lot of hot toys. He has a lot of like really
yeah,
good like Mezco figures. He's got a lot of like pink skull. Like he's got like next level like stuff that I appreciate. I want it. He's got it. Him and I both kind of started going crazy on whatnot.
yeah,
I built up a massive vintage collection, and he built up like a crazy Mezco Mafex collection and Hot
mhm,
Toys. And like, you have to be passionate about it and appreciate it. And I think that's
yeah,
where like, we see like every time, like for example, every time we watch Purple Gang,
yeah,
and they're live streaming,
mhm,
there's some kind of customization going on. There's some kind of like craziness happening. I told you I personally really love it. It reminds me of Monty Python.
yeah,
I'm excited about it. I'll have to get a purple tank top so I can jump on the show one day. But you know that they're passionate, and the group of people that they surround themselves with are passionate about it. On
mhm,
our end, we have a lot of people that are passionate about it as well. We've been
yeah,
figuring out what do we cut, what do we do, whatever. But there's never the one thing that's important is that like even if you remove tariffs, like if
yeah,
you just removed it and it didn't happen, The $30 figure was going to show up regardless because they were at one point in time $17.
Yeah, exactly.
So, you know, Purple Gang, Dennis says Purple Gang was just on Mythic's conversations with the director of sales and marketing with Four Horsemen, and they were somewhat serious. Pretty fun to watch. Yeah. We love the Purple Gang guys. You can check them out on Bandito Radio on Full Frontal Purple as well. They have a sideshow on there, and I know they do release that the following week on their channel too. So want to thank everyone for coming in. If you haven't done it yet, go ahead and hit that subscribe button. Punch up those little fingers. We do have an actual super chat goal that if we meet, we'll take all the money and do a giveaway. So look, I think the collecting in terms of what I think is going to happen, and Moocher had mentioned it earlier on. I think it's changed. I do not think that it's done.
No,
but I think the way it was current, I think it's slowly going to change. Now there may be this whole thing that we come back to, and then everyone adjusts prices, and things aren't what everyone's feeling like it is. But at the same time, like, it's just going to go up anyways, you know.
And Dinch said, I just started listening to Bandito a few weeks ago. It's a lot of fun on my weekly commute today, and that's why it's there. It's for toy collectors and toy enthusiasts, Dennis. So I'm glad you're enjoying it. Yeah, I think it takes a reboot. I think as a collector, you're gonna sit back and take a reboot. You're gonna take stock of the situation. You're gonna look at it. And you're gonna say to yourself, like, is this figure, like, you may pick and choose a little bit more. There may be a point where, I might, and actually, I just got to bring this up because it's actually funny. I might need to be admitted into the FOMO Institute. They're taking people, Dennis. They're taking people.
Yeah.
And also another Bandito Radio is epic. Yes. Make sure also, if you guys are subscribing here, Bandito Radio now lives as its own YouTube channel. Make sure you're subscribing over there as well. See, the director brings up a good point. We should go back. To trading with all of these ridiculous prices. I feel like 2020 is repeating again. Plus, look at the gaming market is bad. Now, that's one thing that Meek says. Basically, he's our gaming correspondent, and he has been preaching that if we think that toys are getting crazy,
Yeah,
like
I grabbed that's wild, because I was talking to Meeks like 2 days ago, and I was like, yeah, I don't think I'm going to keep my Switch 2 pre-order. Just I don't know. And he's like, hey man, just as a heads up, like, since you have it and it's confirmed, like, you're gonna pay like $500 for it, and when you grab it and walk out of the store, you'll be able to sell for $1,000. And I was like,
yeah,
I'm gonna keep my pre-order and figure it out if I want it or not.
But I think it's a reboot. I think it changes, but I think it's more selective. I think as you start thinking about what if maybe you don't build the X-Men team. Maybe you go for smaller one-off characters. Maybe you go for like the Punisher and street level guys. Maybe you don't try to get into the entire Avenger line, or maybe you decide that you're gonna just collect the Retro Joe card backs, and you're not gonna do the standard classified new updates to them. I don't know. Maybe you don't do the sublines. Whatever it is, I think you're gonna be a little bit more selective. Now, I think in this case too, though, this is where, and me, man, I'm a big preacher of it. The independent market, I really do believe that. I think this is their time to really spotlight, because their more original ideas are coming out of there. People are willing to spend because they understand what it takes to build and put these lines out. You got Brutal Realms, you've got all these other great ones. You've got the AWOC. You're looking at Savage Crucibles. Mythic Legions. There's so many of these lines that are out there that at that point you're gonna really spend. Is like, I might not spend my money totally on a bigger company. I might spend on an independent company. That way, we just saw that Flip Wars just came in. These things are going to start popping up. And yes, Purple Gang, the independents are killing it, and they are more original ideas. This is the whole thing that David Vonner's been doing. And I know that's right. And also, see, director put up right here too, not to glance over it, but he's right. He's like, I'm not getting a Switch 2, but I'll be getting a GTA 6 for $99. Who's with me?
Don't worry, I'm with you on that all the way. There's no exceptions to that rule. Yeah.
So that's where I think it changes. I think you pick and choose, and then I think you think about like I much rather pay for something original that does have the actual chance of going up in pricing that I
Yeah.
could probably, is a little bit more valuable down the line because it wasn't as many made.
So I think for me where it lands and why I'm such a big vintage collector is because Chad, what's up? Welcome in. Hope you're doing well. I think for me where it is that I love the idea of knowing that this was produced or made at the era of the time when I was a child.
Yes.
Um and it just brings back memories, it brings back things. But the other thing to that too, and Rad and I had talked about this a while back, kind of like in the early stages when we were doing retro rewind, which we'll probably actually pick back up again soon. But like we were talking about like the packaging. So like back in the day when you looked at packaging, no matter what line it was, right? You
Yeah.
had GI Joe, you had Mask, you had like Marvel had this Galactus box that was nuts. The packaging drew you in and the toys were there. So when you're going retro and you're hunting that, that's why the box is so massive and so
Yeah.
important to get for certain lines, right?
Mhm.
Um I just don't think that's something that people are paying attention to. Now I'll tell you, like Ganesha and all of the Mythic Legions that I have purchased. And here's the thing, okay? Mythic Legions, this is how Mythic Legions works. You look at them and you go, "Yeah, I just don't know if I'm into it." And then you go to a convention and you see them and then you touch them and you're like, "Yeah, I'm just going to go ahead and buy one of everything that you have here." And that was my problem at Toylanta.
Yeah.
Um
Yeah. Yeah.
but look, I think it just feels like a lot right now hinges on the fact of like, are people passionate about it? Um, and if they are, what are they gonna have to sacrifice to keep purchasing that passion? And I think that's where we'll see the difference.
And this is a very interesting. C Director said, "Can you explain the main difference between vintage, retro, and modern collections? What time? I'm thinking what times. I think it's what type separates each other. If
It's
uh,
yeah, it's basically by like year, and there's like big gaps. Like
mhm,
vintage, technically, like when you say Mask, that's more retro than it is vintage.
okay,
Vintage is like even older than like
well,
Mask was like 86,
yeah,
80, no, yeah, something like that. You could classify that technically as like vintage.
yeah.
Actually, you know what? It probably is. In retros, like
It's considered now vintage. At one point, it was retro,
retro would be
but
like
it's
80 or late 80s, early
yeah,
90s,
and
and
then
modern is all
also
the stuff out now.
modern stuff right now. And vintage also, if you think about the 12-inch, 6 seat version of GI Joe. If
Sure.
you're looking at those eras, Bionic Man, some of these,
All the old school Joes that were
e-
like, yeah.
exactly. And then you've got, like I said, then retro is more or less like, I would say you would kind of now throw in, they use it in two different ways, but retro is like 25th anniversary Joes. You
Mhm.
throw that into the third generation of Transformers. Modern is the brand new stuff they're throwing on the market that chances are look like the retro or vintage that they're
Yeah.
going through. So it does make it very interesting. Chad said something too, was he said he was at Toy Atlanta. We were at Toy Atlanta too, Chad. And he said,
Yeah.
and
It
he's
was
headed
great.
to IshCon. Make sure you check out Uru Toys and our buddies, the
Yeah.
Purple Gang, because they're going to be there. Say hi to those guys. And I'm sure they're going to have some kind of interesting stickers or something there. Not to talk for you guys, but I know you guys always come with the rad stuff at these conventions.
Yeah.
And
You'll
then,
see actually if you make it over to Uru Toys, the Night Wolf that he's gonna have there is the one that I customized for Monster Force. So
yeah,
you'll be able to see that over there. It's pretty rad.
Wholesome World Life breaks down. Vintage is technically 20 plus years, kind of like, and we're all so old. Antique is yeah, antique is what you do with your wife and everything through Massachusetts for the weekend. Antique roadshow and
That
it's,
sounds interesting. That
yeah,
whole thing.
and it's like cool deal. And then you've got Darth Moocher who's chiming in and said, I
I
think
think
vintage
vintage
is.
is the
You want to go
original
ahead, Lee?
release
Yeah.
that's not available anymore. He forgot the E there. No, I'm just kidding. Retro is modern. That is vintage repack and vintage sculpt, and modern is now something like that. Yeah, I would agree with that.
Yeah.
I
And
actually, it is literally what everyone is saying right now.
yeah, pretty much. And same thing. We will be chilling at Dirk's Designs and Custom Booth at IshCon. So yeah, make sure you guys are checking out the Purple Gang, man, because those guys, look, if you think they're great online, it's nothing than when you see them in person. It is always a good time. They're just really great guys. Always happy to be associated with them. C Director, thanks for everyone for explaining it more in depth. I always get confused with the vintage retro. And since those words are used so common on everything, and he's absolute, like they will use retro
All the
on
time.
everything they can just to bring up a sense of nostalgia. I think that's what it's more or less on. And let's see, it's like I'm ready for Joe Fest again. Yep, Joe Fest is. I think I know Purple Gang and Uru. We were trying to get down there, but Roboto Show prevented us from going. Actually, so that was a little too much
Yeah.
in the same month and everything. So we're going to be there in spirits with our brothers. So, but yeah, you know, it's. I think it's smart to take point, and like we've always said this, it is. Don't get overwhelmed by this. Don't allow it to stress you out. This is a hobby, and this is a hobby that we
Mhm.
want to enjoy. When something is not being able to be enjoyed, then you're putting too much stress on yourself from it. And you might need to just take a moment, step back, and just do a reassessment. You're supposed to have a good time. It's not, these prices aren't supposed to drive you crazy. You're not, you know, and we laughed about the FOMO Institute, but you're not supposed to have FOMO to the point where it cripples you. You want to enjoy it, have a good time. You want to look at your collection, have a sense of joy, but that does not mean you need to collect everything, you know? And I
Yeah.
think that's where it gets confusing because you just get wrapped up to like, well, I gotta have this, I want to have that, and it's bringing pressure on you. Enjoy, take a deep step, enjoy. Look, I Toy Atlanta was great, and SoCal Joe Show because it's community based shows. You go there, people are having a good time. There's smile on people's faces. You see the younger individuals that pop in, and they bring a little joy back into you. You know, that's what it's meant to be. It's just to have a good time. So if you're not having a good time, take a step back, breathe a little, and if it's got me frustration, think about it from a little different. And you got Meeks. What's going on? The director of conventions for us. There you go, Meeks, out there doing it. He was like, "Do you plan on being
Yeah,
on
we're
at any Florida?"
really
Yes.
yeah, so we are looking into we don't really know the Florida side that well. I only know Georgia. I just moved back from Georgia. But we are looking at what would make sense to go do in Florida. That is 100%. What area are you in specifically, CS? I'd be curious as to that so we can make sure and let you know. But it is something we're looking at. Um, yeah, I think that's it. I think you have a lot of there's a lot of like he's in South Florida. Okay. So there's a lot of that like FOMO and all and
Mhm.
just like pressure to kind of like go with the flow of what everyone else is talking about. But ultimately, at the end of the day, you got to remember why you got into it, why it's fun, and then also
Yeah.
look, hey, um, if you if you want to go and figure out what to spend your own money on and start collecting, I think that this is going to show the rise of customizers as well because people will
Yes.
start saying
Yes.
like
Mhm.
where can I get this figure or how can I do this, and instead of buying something like that they might buy like a fodder piece and be like, can you customize this and
Yeah.
make it look like this, right?
Yeah.
And
Well,
yeah,
well,
also Morlock says Georgia's in indie toy cons are at, Florida's more anime pop culture. Yeah, that's correct.
Yeah.
Luckily, we have our giant group can fit into either one of those. So we're just trying to
Yeah.
figure out what makes sense. So
But yeah, no, I think you're absolutely right. I think customizers take advantage of this. I think same thing. Like, it was one of those things. When we were at the SoCal Joe show, I've got the 3D printed checkpoint alpha that's sitting up there. And that was something that I was like, wow, I hadn't seen at one point. I think Hasbro will make it, but like for the price that it was and the detail and everything else, it was fantastic. And I was like, you know what? I'd rather spend my money on this than something of the classified line and they had some really good 3D printers that were there, customizers that were there, all kind of cloth goods and everything else. That's where what makes it you start like, customizing your collection a little bit more. And that's where a little bit more enjoyment comes through. And also the
yeah.
prices were way under market value of everything else.
Yeah, and I think that's another thing too that people aren't looking at is like um anyone I know that collects has hundreds of figures.
Yeah.
If not, they just barely broke 100, but they're up there.
Yeah.
Um I have an entire closet full of vintage toys. So
Yeah.
here's the thing. What this is also going to spawn is it's going to spawn people to do exactly what you said, which is like reassess their
Yes.
figures. And then it was mentioned a little bit earlier back. I think CS said or somebody said we should get back into trading because it was that's how because it's going
Yeah.
crazy. Um,
Mhm.
and I think that's ultimately what it's going to come down to is like how do you trade? Like maybe you have a figure I want, I have one you want. Like let's swap it
Yeah.
out. I know like Rad and I did that.
Yeah.
So
But also
uh
that's what makes like Joe Alana and some of these other shows because they do have like hallway swaps or
mhm,
they so it brings a different interest and that's what we used to do as kids. You swap hey man, you take two Joes for this maybe this G1 transformer. You used to do that all the time. And I think that is a way that might be used. It's a form of currency that might return.
yeah,
C Director says, I look at my collection and I appreciate what I have, but with these prices, I'm not mad if I don't have or find something. Um, Sometimes we can take it for granted. You're absolutely right. You're absolutely right. And also Warlock chimes in with Toylanta, Joe Fest, Joe Atlanta, Charlie's Collectible Shows, aka Big Dub Con, aka Georgia Mythic Meetup are the 4 shows we hit in Georgia. Okay. All right. Well, uh,
Yeah, Georgia. I really liked it out there. I went to a lot of cons.
yeah,
Joe Fest is probably one of my favorite ones that's out there.
yeah,
I love it. It's good. It's a great con.
yeah. But but with everything else though, Chet, you've got your tale of two cities, but we're going to use that term, tell of two companies. And right before we hit that up, I just want to hit this room swaps. Hall swaps are definitely a thing in the South and the Mid Atlantic and Northeast. Do not tolerate selling outside of the floor. Oh, okay. Well, that's interesting to know. Never been a part of one of those, but never know.
Yeah.
That's general point. But yeah, the tell of two companies. Let's roll that up on the board right here. Super 7, if you haven't seen the things, and I was just talking to one of our OGs this morning about this, and it was like, "Hey, did you hear the thing from Super 7?" And he was like, "Yeah, I'm not surprised. I'm kind of kind of shocked that it didn't happen a little sooner than this." But Super 7 has possible layoffs, and they are claiming that it's over the tariff situation. Now, obviously, over the weekend, the tariff situations kind of the rollback was. So I don't know if anybody else is like if they're going to look at it and reassess and say, hey, we might need to change up how we bring back some people or something. I don't know if it's going to do that, but I think for them to say that it was blamed on tariffs, I'll be honest with you, chat. How we are about Super 7. You know, like I've always thought that their product was kind of subpar. But I appreciate people that do it. It's personally just not for me. I've never really gotten excited about anything he did. And then we saw one item that we were in the collector's area of a Target, and I was like, wow, this is Super 7. This is actually looking pretty good. And then they did something else fly off the model where they started throwing up prices on in stock things. I was like, uh, just when you might have got me, you pulled me back. Look, I've always thought the company was always mismanaged a little, inappropriately. And, I thought their prices were always a little bit higher than it was necessary because I think they were hitting at the $20 mark for 3 3/4 figures before anybody. And I was like, that's not a lot of plastic for you charging that amount of money. And, it's not surprising to me. I know we've talked about it that, Super 7 and Funko were the two that we were kind of like, we've got to wait and see on because thought they might be on shaky ground. Is this
Mhm.
news surprising to you by Super 7? Or are you thinking, yeah, bro, this sounds like the mark, what they would do?
Um, I wouldn't say that I'm surprised. And look, I would say that if it was anybody, there are things that Super Seven has done that I really like, just like anything else, and then there's things that they've done that I don't like. Their pricing for me and this is where we talked a little bit about collection levels, right? Like, what
Yeah.
is your collection level? I think the Super Seven's collection level, um, I think that where they're at on that level and who's in that market competing for that. Yeah, Super 7 reaction could have been the new Funko Pop craze, but not at 17 exactly.
Yeah,
And that's
exactly.
my point, is that I think Super 7 is competing with Marvel Legends and is competing with GI Joe and is competing with Black Series like directly, and more directly it's competing with NECA.
Yeah.
And
But I
and
don't
I
think you have
think
the quality of those companies.
no, that's what I'm saying, is that they're
Yeah.
competing directly with it. And so when you look at it, your next filter has to be, well, who makes the better quality figure? And let me go that route, right?
Yeah.
Like, and that, unfortunately, that is a situation. I think I think at the end of the day, I don't think that you could say it's over the tariff situation. I know
No.
people. There's been some. I've seen some podcasts where some people have been on. They said they've talked to Super Seven directly and saw the like tariff bill they had to pay and things. And so, okay, cool. It is what it is. I get it. I understand that. But what I really think is happening, and this is something that people don't pay attention to, is like we would love to think that Super Seven is indie. The problem is there's not. They've
Yeah.
done they've done rounds of funding. They've
Yeah.
taken millions of dollars from investors. And once you do $1 million of investors, everyone there was an employee, including yourself, if you own the company, becomes an asset. And when you have to make money, when you have to pay money back to somebody else, what happens is they go, let's look at assets. And that translates to, because I've been in the building and I've had these conversations at a very high level in some Fortune 500 companies, what happens is all of the people become a line item, and you sit there and you say, could we, should we, will we, let's do it. And you don't care about the person because it's not business. Business is your bottom line, your money. And so I think with all the rounds of fundings over history that Super 7 has taken, when you get hit with a bill that's like a tariff bill, you get hit with a bigger bill. Yeah, it is a where can I cut costs situation, and unfortunately, they had to cut the costs. I mean, there's other ways around it, I believe, but I'm not Super 7. I'm not armchair quarterback in this shit either. I'm talking based off of like what I looked into for Super 7 and what they've done historically to make money. You know,
Well,
it's a bummer.
I think one of the things that also hits them hard, they have 2 retail stores, one in San Diego, one in
Yeah,
San Francisco. And I
no
also
point.
think that there's a lot of overhead when you have to have a brick and mortar as well. So, did they make a lot of great decisions? I don't think so. Did they make some of the dumbest decisions? No, I don't think so either. I just think that sometimes you come out the box a little bit swinging, and you swing sometimes a little big, and then something happens and you got to reassess that situation. But in the
Yeah.
same point though, again, we're talking about a tale of two companies here, like a tale of two cities. Nacelle, their CEO gets on and he goes on to Instagram and all of his socials, and impactful, very clean messaging. No, prices aren't going to increase. We're gonna still the same. Everything's running the same exact way. And it was a clear. There's two people I've seen do this. One was the head of Nacelle, Brian, and then the other one was David Vonner. Where it's like, don't panic, write this thing out. Like I said,
Ace,
this is
Ace as well.
and yeah, and when Ace came on show three, so three, correct, very correct. Um, the people that are in it are telling people, don't jump to conclusions. The sky's not falling. Things are going to change. But I thought the message that they gave us over at Nacelle was a great one. It was delivered with a calm and rational scenario. Somebody who did not look like they were panicking. Just like, hey, this is what it is. We're not going to do it. It's not going to get passed on. And, we're fine. And I think that, there's a lot of people that want to go in and run in like, oh, yeah, I'm happy that Super 7 is gone. No one should be happy because there's a bunch of people that are losing their jobs. Um, it's one of those things where it's like at one point or another, you're sad for the situation that happened, and you're hoping that these people come out the right end for it. We're hoping that this actually makes Super 7 think and
Yeah.
reassess and come back with a different plan. But to
Well,
dance on their graves, you shouldn't be doing
I'll
that.
give you, yeah, I think if you dance on someone's graves because they lost jobs, I that just speaks to your character, and I don't need to say anything else. What I will say is this, though. I do hope that Super 7 learns this, and this is something that I've had to do when building teams where places I've worked at before, or even with like our own company,
Yeah.
is that sometimes you do get too bloated as a company. Sometimes you do. Now, there are a couple ways to handle this. One is you could try to repurpose that person, move them to a different role that needs support, whatever. But what happens is when you become too bloated, people get lazy. And
Yeah.
so you can assess the situation, and I'm really hoping that Super 7 takes this and makes this a positive. And I've heard that Super 7 is very supportive of people they had to let go, which is great. So they can do what they can do. Nameless Void, good luck on your exams tomorrow. Hopefully they're not math exams because luck ain't gonna help. So I'm hoping that Super 7 learns how to lean it out, because
Yeah.
then what happens is when you're in those discussion with finance, which everyone knows that has been in a company, finance runs a company.
Mhm.
When you're in finance and you can speak to why everyone is in the role that they're in and what impact they have, and if it's gone, what that'll do to the business, it's very hard and it's extremely difficult for finance to say, well, let's cut that person, right?
Yeah. Mhm.
And one of the companies I was at, I was head of the deal behind a giant hotel combining with someone else that sounds like Chariot. And a lot of that was questions around what is the purpose of this team? What is the purpose of this team? Why does this team do this? Why does it? And we had to be able to speak to all of that situation. And so I think that's what I'm hoping that Super 7 gets out of this, right? Like, also Super 7, like, let's reach out to Nacelle and find out how he's not gonna, like, how they're not going to be able to increase their prices, and they're not worried about it, right? So like,
Yeah.
seek out from others in your industry to find out what they're doing.
I think, like you said, I think it gives them the opportunity to take a reboot of the situation. And if you're smart, you sit back and you understand what happened in the situation you did. Sometimes failure is always considered to be a horrible word, but you grow from failure. And if you have to go a step back, then that just means you get to do two steps forward. Hopefully, they learn something from this. They come out and they actually, revamp themselves, and they understand the problems here. Because again, it's like, you want to see everybody in this, in the toy industry succeed. And that's one of the main things is that, you don't want to see anybody where it's like, yeah, like, I'm happy they're gone. No, 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 no. First of all, they're not gone. Second point of it is that I think if you have like good people around you, you rethink it, you come back stronger. And maybe there's an original idea that they have because a lot of their ideas are licensed, and maybe they actually come up with something a little bit more original that they push out that they know they don't have to pay a licensing to. You never know how this happens and how this works. And the other company that I'm a little worried about is NECA, because NECA got themselves involved in that whole, we found out they had a parent company, and they're holding the diamond thing. And we may be hearing down the line that that probably wasn't the situation. Like C Director says, it's very much true. Random thoughts, but to me, what ruined the toy market were Funko Pops. Glad I never fell into the rabbit hole. Leave me with Marvel Legends, Mattel, and McFarlane. Look, I think there's like Beanie Babies and everything. Everything
Ooh.
there's always a fad, you know. And I've been look every show that we do, every time we go to a like a collector's convention or you go to like any swap meets or something, they're all over the place, and I don't see them getting the same crazy attention they are anymore. And I see a lot of people stuck with those things.
Well,
I
and
I
then
I
yeah, I mean,
don't know
I
what's
went
going to
into this.
happen with that.
I went into this comic store 2 days ago. I think I was walking around trying to find something, and I had never been there. I didn't know about it, and he said it was like comics and collectibles, whatever. And I walked in, Mr. Storm, Mr. Director, and the chat alike. There had to have been thousands of Funko Pops that this place was trying to sell. And I
Yeah,
was like, man, what a bummer to sit on that much inventory that no one gives a shit about.
yeah, yeah.
And
That's a
what's
tough one.
crazy is people still buy them, but it's not what it was.
Yeah. Well, I've seen
And
a lot of like we've talked about. Oh, and like we are talking about the same thing about the whole the Ross kind of situation. We haven't mentioned the Rossathons that'll be coming because guess what? You know, there's got the end of this year. Save your nickels and dimes because they add up to dollars because there is going to be a Rothathon because a lot of people are not going to be paying these prices and they're going to have to go to a secondary market. But yeah, we go to Ross and Burlington's and all of the like discount stores, and yeah, Funkos are everywhere, and Funkos are selling for like $2-3, and then there's some that's selling for 20-30. But there's just so many of them, so many different. I think this is the problem when you have way too many licenses. It kind of hurts you when you have all that stuff put in. And yeah, that guy's stuff, welcome in, sir. Funkos look like action figures that got stepped on and their eyes popped out as a major pass.
yeah,
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 they've always been. It's a niche, but I just think they grew because they have like every like Lego does it right. If you got every
hmm
license in the world, everybody wants that. But like Funko, there was a point where I think they grabbed way too many licenses. And I think that
yeah,
now it's like you don't know what they do or what direction they're in because it seems like they're just everywhere now. And I think that's from they were in a craze. Now the craze is over with, but now they're like, what do we do to keep people still talking about us, keep us relevant? And Dr. Brentley puts in, yeah, all those Funko's eyes staring back at you all day. And yeah, see, the director says this too. Yeah, Ross has good stuff now, and I came up on some Transformer
I,
Legacies, some
I,
Batman, the Marvel Legends. But this holiday season is going to be lit. And let me tell you something: the stuff that ain't going off the shelf now, and that they got to go someplace. And I'm gonna guarantee
yeah,
you,
and
it's gonna be at Ross's again at the end of the year. I'm waiting for this one, bro. We might
I'm gonna
start
tell
doing
you
daily
this.
Ross videos.
Yeah, but I'm gonna tell you this though. Like, there's something about Ross and Ollie's and things like that back
Yeah.
east because
Oh yeah.
they're
Yeah.
when I was in Georgia, man, I was finding shit in Ross
Yeah.
and Ollie's and TJ Maxx, like all that stuff that was just like,
Yep.
this doesn't make any sense. But on the West Coast, I don't
Yeah.
necessarily know if
It
it's kind of
unless you're Scott Solo, it doesn't make sense to toy hunt that much. But you know what? When we get out to Florida, we have to go toy hunting with CD Director because I
yeah,
guarantee you, he's probably got some damn good stories out there. But
yeah, we'll
hey,
film it.
yeah, yeah, it's when he says, yeah, double
No,
win for the Ross and the Burlington, right?
hey,
Next Florida
if
one,
you know about, but if you know about Burlington, can you say that
yes.
word without wanting to sing the song?
Yeah, I can. It's
Okay, well,
because like there's a
you
whole
were just
generation of
wondering.
people that don't even know that Burlington's was just the original coat factory. And let's see. Polish tamales. Hey, welcome in, sir. Ross in Southern Cali is pretty packed with pops. And yes, let me. I know this because we're in Southern California too. So, Polish, I can tell you, yes, they are packed with that. But haven't been. I have noticed the one thing about out here that's a little bit different. there are way more anime figures on the West Coast. When we went to Ollie's when we were in Georgia, I didn't see a lot of anime, but there are
Yeah.
a lot of anime or anime statue kind of ish here in
Yeah.
Southern California for some strange reason. So, maybe that's the trade-off that we're getting here. So if you're an anime fan, Southern California Ross's and Ollie's and Ross, Burlington Coat Factories, TJ Maxx's, all those little areas is for you. And yep. Hollis says that. Oh yeah, tons and tons of that's what you see in the Southern
Yeah, and
California area.
there was a bad Bandai figure, by the way, at Ross from what show was it?
I don't think it
Oh,
was. It wasn't
it
one.
was like it was like PlayStation, and the head
Oh
sculpt was like
yeah.
trash. I forget. It was
It was the
Ghost.
ghost
Yeah,
of what's that game?
the samurai
Um,
game. I don't remember what it was.
yeah, that one was I
It
was
was
kind of
rough.
shocked on that one too. Yeah,
Yeah, it was
but
rough.
hey, it is what it is. But you know what, brother? We're getting down to
Yeah,
the end of the hour and everything. We're always
we are.
respectful for our buddies over at the Sarlacc Digest podcast. If you don't to know, tonight they're going to be talking about the end of Andor over on Disney Plus. And of course, we like to say they're the best damn Star Wars show on the market. So make sure you're tuning in because guess what? The minute this stream ends, you're definitely going to be tuning in. And yeah, she was recently found. Oh, LA was recently found to the Ross last week. Yep, that's what I said again. Now here, anime. So hey, if you're wondering where to find us, other than right here on Wednesday nights at 7 p.m. Pacific, 10 p.m. Eastern Standard Times, you can always pop over on Friday to Pixel Plastic and Ink with Dr. Brentley, with Rad, with myself and Mr. Maddox. That's also on the same time, Fridays at 7 p.m. Pacific, 10 p.m. Eastern Standard Times. It's always fun and everything, especially when we got some monster soap out there. That was a hell of a laugh Friday that we had.
That's funny. Yeah.
But if you can't wait and to catch us on our videos or streams or shorts and everything, then you know what you can do. You can catch us in person and a couple of shows and everything. Now we love our buddies over at Uru Toys. The like I said, the Night Wolf Bad Vehicle going to be coming out to market. You definitely will be a Purple Gang fun every time. They're going to be in Ishcon this weekend, the 17th and 18th. And make sure that if you're out in that way in North Carolina, you go by and see our buddies out there. Because again, it's always a good time when you hang out with them. Vince and Jordan, all the rest of them, great guys. Love them dearly. But if you want to check us out and you're here in Southern California on June 8th, we're going to be at the Burbank Convention Center in Burbank, California, for the Robo Toy Fest. And we will have not only ourselves, SKN, will be live streaming from the actual table and the floor. So you'll get a sense if you don't go to these conventions, you don't have to. Somebody will be there filming it for you. But also our partners over at Odd Frog Entertainment will be there, and a somebody just hit us out of nowhere, and that's I like to say the point is out of nowhere. If you haven't been checking out or heard word from Holy Grail Toys, they are I would say they're pretty impressive. They're so impressive that we decided to give them most of our merchandise because they can take it off our heads and do it better. But they will be premiering their booth at also at Robo Toy Fest. And again, what was the elevator pitch, Chet, that Holy Grail gave us?
It's like StockX, but for toys.
Okay, yeah. I knew it was something that was like right out the bat. So it's
Yeah.
it got some interesting things going on. And then if you miss us on Joe the 8th, and you again Uru and the Purple Gang, they're going to be at the Joe Fest. And if you haven't been to a Joe event, that is one of the better Joe events to go to. It's in Augusta, Georgia, at the Augusta Marriott in the Convention Center. And they're claiming they got 40,000 square feet of toys, comic books, and amazing guests. But of
Yeah, it's
course, we
awesome.
would just go for Marcellus and our buddies Van and our good buddies Jordan over the Purple Gang. Go over there and see those guys and tell them that your buddies over at the SKN told you to come by and see them and everything. It's a sight, man. The guys always do something, and we've got like I said again, see the director Awesome show tonight as always. I look forward to Wednesdays. Talk about toys, guys. Look forward to always having you come and chat. And if you haven't taken this moment right now and you haven't done it, well, then guess what? You're probably going to get a little chastised by Mr. Maddox, but you should be subscribing, liking, and following not just us, Purple Gang Gang, and our buddies over at the Sarlacc Digest podcast and Bandito Radio 112 FM. It is on its own YouTube channel, so we need you guys to go over there and subscribe to that. And if you're into anything that's got, toys, from toy collecting to toy hunting to, toy customization or toy photography, that is the channel for you. All indie artists, great podcast, and just to keep you entertained while you're back there customizing your figures in the middle of the night. Need something to listen to.
Oh, I guess Meeks is paying for them.
Uh-oh.
Cubs are free for a limited time. Get it while you can. Get them while they're hot. Yeah, no, it's great. Yeah, there's a lot of stuff coming out. We're really excited about it. I'm excited about Holy Grail Toys.
Yeah, great guys over there, man.
Yeah, a lot of good things happening. So
absolutely. But it's up. Dead Man Juan. What's going on, sir? Yeah. Well, from there, I guess you're gonna get ready, strapped in. If you haven't watched the last 3 episodes of Andor, well, guess what? You get the absolute breakdown. If you just don't have time to watch it, and you just need somebody to give you the precise what it was about, what was going on, and actually break down the whole series, because it was a great series. By the way, if you haven't watched it, it deserves to be watched. But you're gonna get the I like to say the Wednesday night quarterback version of it from the best damn Star Wars crew on all of YouTube, Sarlacc Digest podcast. Anything else you want to wrap up, Chet?
No. I'm excited for Friday's show. I know there's a lot of good topics that we're going to be talking about. Comic Book Bin, glad to have you. Glad we were able to provide you some entertainment for the night.
Yeah, make sure you subscribe, brother.
You could see the list of all of our shows coming up on our live tab. A lot more changes happening on socials, so make sure you pay attention over there. But it is time that we send you on your way to the best damn Star Wars podcast. We want to thank you all for being here tonight. Make sure you like, subscribe, hit that thumbs up. Hey, Rewatch crew, we appreciate you just as much. Thank you. So really quick, I think this is important. We got a pro tip here for Raw shoppers. We want to bring that up. I guess I'll bring that up. Pro tip for Raw shoppers: each toy company and Walmart clears out their warehouses to pad their quarterly earnings report. You can expect an influx of new toy stock a few weeks after said report.
Wow. Did not know that. Thank you, Polish Tamales.
Yeah.
That's
Deadman, yes. Spar Wars. All right, look, hey, you don't have to stay here. You can stay here if you want, but we're not going to be here. So we want to remind everyone to keep chasing that plastic dragon. You'll eventually catch it. Don't worry about it. Also, pretty rad merch coming out on Holy Grail Toys whenever they launch that. But thank you all, and we will see you next Wednesday. But more importantly, see you on Friday.